right, let's do a little room tour of the share house that I'm currently in. So this is my room right here. We don't really go into each other's rooms very often since there's a big living space, but I like putting this here, so I take off my shoes there. I hang my keys there. This is the bed area. It's a bit messy right now, but I like just hanging stuff around the place because it's convenient. But this is basically it, all the space that there is, and I'm gonna do just a little small review of my experience here so far. It's basically coming to a close, so I just wanted to talk about it a bit. Let's go ahead and put this down, and then we'll just talk. Actually, wait, let's look at the bed real quick. So, okay, here is the bed area. There's like a fan right there that's usually on, but I turned it off for the sake of the recording. So this is essentially my review of my right about 2.5 month stay in Kamigamo House, Borderless House. It's one of 2 share houses that I've ever been in. The first one was Oak House, and I sort of talked about that, but maybe I'll make like a full-on review of it at some point. But I mentioned it in my, I think, 2 different videos, highlighting my experience in Japan, as well as just like the cost of everything, since obviously housing is a big factor of how much monthly cost is for living in Japan. Anyways, I think for this one, I'm more going to talk about my experience rather than the cost. The cost is very simple. I think the first month is about $600 something, and then the following months is about $400 something, and I think the contract renews every, I think maybe 6 months. So you have to like do that again, the first payment and then so on. I'm not entirely sure about that. I've only been here for 2.5 months, but that's the cost. Very, very cheap overall. And I think it's really, really worth it for the price. The kitchen, the living room space basically is really, really big and bigger than other share houses that I've visited. And it's very communal, basically. The room itself right here is what I'm only showing at the moment. Maybe I'll get a little bit of footage of the communal space, but for the time being, let's talk about the room, I guess. So the room overall is comfortable. There's nothing that I personally have complaints about. Luckily, I lived here during the winter and also early spring, so it never got too hot. There were a few days that were kind of warm, but there is an AC unit that I never used, and the fan also did most of the work. So it was never cold either, so definitely good during the winter and early spring. The desk space is very nice. That was one thing I didn't like about the previous share house, is that I didn't really get to use this desk, or I didn't have a desk at all, and it was very uncomfortable whenever I used my laptop or did some editing, which is kind of ironic because I did like far less editing in this share house, and let's get into why. Because most of the time I'm doing something in the share house, like interacting with people. That's one thing that is beneficial about the other one, is because there's less communal activities going on, you tend to go to your room right away and just do stuff in your room. But here, when you hear people outside hanging out, also you can very much hear them because the walls are kind of thin. You can hear mumbling sometimes when your neighbor talks. The other share house, Oak House, they have much thicker walls, and it's difficult to hear people unless it's basically, I met my neighbor at some point after I moved out, and she said she never heard anything from me. Even though I did voiceovers, even though I did like daily audio journals talking out loud, she never heard anything from me. So that was impressive for sure. If someone is in the next room right now, if my friend is there, he can hear me 100% the way I'm talking right now. So that's one thing. It's like noise. There's gonna be noise if someone is making it in the house. Depends on which room you're in. The room I'm in, luckily, I probably one of the best rooms in terms of not hearing as much noise, but there are some rooms like on the second floor where like there's open space on the second floor, so you can directly hear the noise. And for those people, they kind of have it rough sometimes when, say like yesterday, it was my goodbye party basically. It's a tradition to have goodbye parties and welcome parties for people who come in and leave. So that lasted really long. I think I slept at 4 a.m. and people were still going on after that. So that sometimes happens. And that's one complaint I had earlier on in my experience here, is that there was a good amount of noise every night, even on weekdays. I can't say that it was, at first it was bothersome, but I think like I used these are very, very essential, I feel, if you're gonna live in anywhere noisy. AirPod Pros with sound isolation, or noise reduction basically. Noise cancellation, there you go. They were very, very helpful for me personally. I don't think I could have slept certain nights without them. But after a while, it did calm down. People cycle in and out, and some of the louder people ended up cycling out. So turning on my fan was good enough. It's next to my pillow, so I was able to sleep with just like white noise versus like a voice. I guess for me, like hearing voices is much more inconvenient, much more annoying, I guess, when I'm trying to sleep. And also, I'm sorry if I sound really, really tired. I did sleep at 4 a.m., but I wanted to do this video because it might be the last chance I'm doing this, since I'm packing and everything pretty soon. And I'm filling my last days with meeting all the friends I've made here, and I don't think I'll have another moment like this. So other than that, yeah, the Sharehouse experience is really fun. I was just saying, like, you always hear noise basically, and when you hear people talking outside, you're encouraged to go out and chat with them, talk with them, hang out with them. I wish I did that more, actually. I feel like oftentimes I would just come back to the Sharehouse really late and sleep, because I was always out, either traveling, hanging out with friends that I've made through school, with my girlfriend that I met here. So there's not a lot of times that I got to stay in the Sharehouse and chat with people and hang out with them as much as I wish I could have. It's definitely, something you have to decide for yourself, is if you're someone who's like, you planned a lot of trips, you have a lot of traveling, and you do things outside a lot, you're less likely to, of course you can invite the people in the Sharehouse as well. That's what I've done as well, is hang out with people in the Sharehouse, hang out with the people from the Sharehouse outside of the Sharehouse. Like, you go out together, you travel together and all that, and you form connections and friends. But I think one of the easiest things to do is just hang out with them during dinner, at night, all that stuff. I just didn't do that as much as I wish I could have. That's just the choices I made, basically. And I feel like it's one of the things that I wish I had more time for. Like, I wish I could have cloned myself and done both, basically. But I really enjoyed my time here in the Sharehouse. I think the people really, really define it. So I feel like it changes all the time depending on who's in it. And the first month, I say, was really, really fun and active. And even though I didn't participate as much in the events, I still very much enjoyed being in the Sharehouse. The second month, you sort of get used to it. You're sort of like a part of it. Some people that come in that are new, I like talking to new people, so I would talk to them, and we would sometimes do things together, and it was fun. But at a certain point, it's like you get used to it, I guess. You get used to the routine, and for me, I describe that routine as me coming back late at night and just coming home and sleeping, and then going out again the next day. So I'd say I didn't spend as much time in the Sharehouse in the second month, but had I gotten that time, had the energy, I think everything would have been really, really fun in the Sharehouse. And of course, with a lot of people comes some discord. It's for this share house, there's about like 24 of us, and with 24 people, you can't have perfect harmony all the time. Some people are a little bit messy. Some people don't really do their own dishes immediately, so other people feel like they want to do it as soon as possible, so they sometimes do it. There's sometimes some arguing. There's sometimes a little bit of drama, I suppose. I don't want to get into it, I guess. Not the details, but basically there is stuff that is negative. It's not all amazing, I'd say. Especially the cleanliness part. Like sometimes I do wish people would just clean up after themselves quicker, and yeah, and that there was more peace regarding that. But it happens. It's just the nature of living with other people, I'd say. Overall, still, the shower and the toilets, at least for the ones I use, were kept very clean, luckily. I'd say like the first month I was here, there was like nobody around me in terms of the rooms, so it was a lot cleaner. And then once there was more people in the second month, it was filled up, and you could noticeably tell like things were used more, basically. And also the timing of things matters a lot. So for instance, I said winter and early spring. So the way that the school system works in Japan, I believe, is that things start in April, or like the spring is when things start. So and end. So it's like, but I believe school starts basically in April, because that's what I've noticed for the people that are here. It's generally around, the average age I'd say is like 22. I'd say 21 to 22. And average meaning there are a lot of people younger. So I think 18 is the youngest, and then there are people older as well. I'm one of the older people, but the oldest person here is 30 something, 32 maybe, and there are some people that are 24, some people are 23, 22, 19, 20. So it ranges from there, but it generally is early 20s as the average. And I do think that age matters in a way. Like interacting with people, I don't like thinking about their age, but sometimes it shows in just certain behavior. Some people tend to act a bit more their age, I suppose. Basically, if you are someone who's reflective enough, the older you get, there are just certain things you notice, certain patterns that you notice, and you sort of just come up and decide what your reactions are to those patterns, your way of thinking, and so on. And they tend to be more mature. That's what I noticed, is from the older people compared to the younger people, at least. That much is just obvious, I suppose. But it is noticeable. It is noticeable. And I do wish, part of me feels like coming here at an earlier age would have been better, because there's that feeling of being somewhat of an outsider, I'd say. Like me personally, I don't feel like I'm an outsider, but when you think about age, you tend to think like you'd rather be with people who are similar in age. So when you're hanging out with a lot of people who are younger than you, it does feel a little, I think for me, the worry is more so like the perception of how others feel about someone older hanging out with them. I know it's something that I shouldn't really think about that much, and I usually don't, but it makes me think that if I were younger, around their age, it would be easier to connect in some ways. It's just a mental thing, I suppose, but still something I feel is a factor. So definitely just know that that's the range, I suppose. But anyways, I was trying to mention how I wasn't editing much, and then I went on a huge tangent. So ever since I came here, I've just been going out all the time, sometimes hanging out with the Sharehouse friends, and it's like the time I would spend editing, if I were in the older share house, like going to my room, I would sometimes go out and like talk to some people for like maybe like an hour, which again is not as much as I would like to, just because they spend a lot of time with each other. And it's a thing where like if you're that person that only shows up once in a while, you're just not as part of the group. You don't hear as much. You don't really feel like you're as integrated. They talk about certain things that you don't know about. You're just sort of like there sometimes. That's me, I guess. But because of that tendency to go out and hang out whenever I could, I just did not spend any time editing and audio journaling and all that stuff. So I guess that's a pro and a con in a way, is that I get more social interaction, but I also don't do as much as my own thing because I'm not as bored, I guess. In the first share house, like I go back to my room, I'm like, yeah, there's nothing to do, so let's do our thing, our audio journal, our YouTube stuff. But yeah, that's a huge effect that I feel there's a lot to unpack there, I think. Like, would I be doing YouTube if I were not bored at home sometimes, you know? What if I lived in a different environment where I was always stimulated by social interaction and where I was always doing something else, basically? Does the boredom essentially is the reason why I'm doing YouTube just like the boredom, you know? I have to figure that out. But overall, this Sharehouse experience has been a really, really good one. Ups and downs for sure. But ultimately, I think like living here was a good move. I think I'd rather not have stayed in the first Sharehouse for the whole experience that I had here in Japan. Like, moving share houses was a big, big transition, as well as a highlight for sure. I think my experience here in Japan, a lot of it is defined by the people I met in this share house, as well as like my experience in it. And just, yeah, and the other share houses too. Like, I frequently visit another borderless share house that I've made good friends in. So I really, really encourage, I guess, looking into these share houses. But I'm trying to think what else. You know, interestingly, like a lot of this experience reminds me a little bit of like my time in college. But college was different, at least for me. It was more like you live in a dorm, but you live with other people in the same room, which is sort of different from this, which is like you have your own room, you're living with other people, but it's like a house space. It feels like a house. Versus college for me, the dorms never felt like a house. It just felt like I'm in a room with my friends, and we sometimes do stuff together in the room and sleep and study together, play Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever, and go to school. This one definitely feels very, very different. It feels more like a house. Like you come back to the house, you eat dinner together, you chat with each other, talk, plan events. You're not really there for like a single purpose, which is that school, going to that school. And I think that makes it more interesting and dynamic, that you meet a lot of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, lots of foreigners, but also for Borderless House in particular, there's a lot of Japanese people. I'd say half of this house is Japanese people. So I got to interact with them a lot and speak the language a lot. And I feel like I've improved like way more than I would have if I didn't get that. So that's a big thing for sure. Part of me is sad, you know, that my time here is coming to an end. I think there's a lot that I learned from this experience. A lot that I feel like I'll always remember, and it was like a chapter in my life that felt so different from my life back home in California, just oftentimes being in my own space and just being there by myself. It was very, very different to like get a chance to live with other people that I interacted with a lot and had good memories with. I really think that part of life is having those experiences like that. Like, human beings are very social creatures, of course, but you don't really fully understand that until you get an opportunity to sort of live in this way where it's communal. I think that the communal sort of sense of things, where I live, how I lived back then wasn't there. Was very self-isolating. And I think once I get back to California, I should try my best to set up an environment where I'm more encouraged to, like, obviously I can't get what I have here. I can't just like live with friends like that, unless I move out. So that is a choice. So I can't say it's not a possibility, but for the time being, once I get back, I'll have to figure out some sort of system where I still get that feeling, because I do think it's very important, and I think it's healthy to be in a space like that. Yeah, there's a lot that I need to think about. I just feel like not everything is fully processed yet until I finally leave and go back to my house in California, and I just feel like how I feel and notice the differences even more. This is for me just like me wanting to talk to the camera just to record some final thoughts before I finally leave this place. Because I honestly don't know when I'll be back, and it was like a dream, you know? This whole experience has been like a dream. A lot of takeaways and a lot of memories. Man, I don't want to get too into it at the moment. I do feel quite exhausted because of the lack of sleep, I guess. But I have to go soon, prep for some things, and from then it's kind of non-stop until I leave back to California. 136 days total. That's like about 4 months and a half. It's been a journey. I sort of failed at the whole Sharehouse review thing. I'll probably just redo it at some point, but this is more or less just an update. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Overall, awesome experience. I know my emotion is not conveying, or my what I'm trying to express is not exactly coming through because of my exhaustion, but it really was an awesome experience overall. Ups and downs, but overall awesome. But a part of me really is ready to go home though. There's just a lot that I need to get done and a lot I want to get back into. Sometimes you lose yourself when there's a lot of people around you and other people's wills, and if you're a moldable, adaptable person, it can get a little overwhelming. Especially, like, for me, I value bonds and the connections I make with people, so it's like oftentimes I give up what like some of my personal practices like piano and YouTube and all that stuff to spend time with people, which to me is more important, especially when my time is very limited. And I think I'm realizing that that's okay, you know? Like, that's time I'll never get again to spend with them. And I feel like a lot of the reasons why I would want to earn money or work anyways is to be able to spend more time with friends and family. So why not just do just that? It'll probably hit me soon, the fact that I'm returning. But I really do think I'm going to miss this life. But it's not as if it's the end, right? It's just a phase, a chapter in my life that's closing right now. And I'm returning back to the things that I used to do in California soon. But I'll see it in a new way, and I'll have a very, very fresh perspective on everything. And I think that'll be good. And eventually, I really do think I'll try to come back here. I need to figure some stuff out once I'm back in California, but once I have the space to think properly, I'll make my decisions. But I really do want to come back here and build a life for myself that's like with the elements that I've sort of got to experience here. And I got to figure that out. It's a lot to figure out. But overall, everything has been amazing, and like I keep saying, there are ups and downs, but overall it feels incredible, this whole experience. And I think I'll leave it at that. Like, there's a lot more to talk about, but it'll probably have to be in America. Okay.